Welcome, everybody, to the Synapse Philosophy Group. This is Dr. Haig John, your host, and we have Dr. Barry Hobbs, Carol and Robert Crystal, and Steve Shargell here, and a lot more will come and go. We're on Stephenson's textbook. We're on page 255, and we're on principle number 16. And we've been breaking it down. What year was this one? Stevenson's is 1927. It's very important to remember those dates because, we have to understand of our history of what's going on in the world during that time. You think about, they've just come out of the Depression, right? And you never hear in any of those writings any of that type of language, if you think about it, right? It wasn't how bad everything is and how depressing it was, but really, the amazingness of chiropractic. And I think that's absolutely awesome. So 1927. Um, Anybody have any new news or anything else before we want to start? Well, we are, if you haven't seen it yet, I'm going to do a plug for my last reading because we were doing A Life Without Fear from Fred Barge at my office with me and my CA. And I thought, let's record the reading. And so it came out really nicely, I think. And I've listened to it a couple of times myself, actually. So we might just start recording the rest of that book. We'll see how it goes. I don't know how far I'll get, but I do a lot of reading lately. But so would anybody else like to read? Barry, would you like to read tonight?
Yep, I can read.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. Article 332, Universal Force and All Kinds of Matter. Principle number 16. Universal intelligence gives force to both organic and inorganic matter. If universal force is universal, which it is impossible for any matter to be where universal force is not. Organic matter is but inorganic matter built, organized into structures, and has its full quota of universal forces. It should be kept in mind, however, that they are fully under the control of innate intelligence, that is to say, adapted. If the student has followed the subject closely through the book, he will see, or she will see, easily, that innate does not lack for forces to adapt and assemble for her use, and all without a cable from universal intelligence for conduction.
Mm-hmm. To me, again, that goes to the amazingness, right? Were you going to say something, Barry?
No, I'm sort of speechless after that.
It's a poem. It's poetry. And to me, again, it's the amazingness of chiropractic. The amazingness of what we're working with is mind-boggling, right? It is impossible for any matter to be where universal force is not. All things that are and all things that aren't. Organic matter is but inorganic matter built, organized into structures, and it has its full quota of universal forces. I mean, it's just like, don't you get how wow this all is, And Stephenson just does things so eloquently. It's amazing.
I like this full quota. That's your wants, your needs, the business, love, whatever. It's there. It's a full quota every time. Universal
full quota.
Forces.
It's 100%, right?
Full
There's
quota.
nothing less, nothing more. You're perfect, right? Omnipresent, omnipotent.
And universal intelligence conducts its connection is without a cable. I love that. Makes you just go, wow, the relationship between universal and innate without a cable.
Well, and now we think of Wi-Fi, right? We could say that, well, Wi-Fi, we don't have a cable. I mean, the absolute, gobsmacked of how we can't even perceive how amazing this is. And where he's talking about, just like you said, it should be kept in mind. However, that they are fully under the control of innate intelligence. Universal's creating this. You're 100% universal, no mistakes. Everything is 100% under the control of what Universal has made the mastermind controller within, to say, your cell is not perfect, let's replace you. We need another cell from the stem cells. Let's make the best that we can at the moment. We're in control right now. You need more hair cells for Barry, fewer hair cells for Haig, more beard cells for Alan, and an absolute perfect harmony. And I love this one. I love them all, but just his writing just really brings that out, and I thought I'd express a little bit of that. Alan, glad you can join us.
Thank you. I had a busy day. I was proctoring AP exams at the high school.
Oh, cool. That's great. Here, if the student followed the subject closely through the book, he will see, or she, he will see easily that innate does not lack for force to adapt and assemble as her use, and all without a cable from universal intelligence for conduction. Absolutely.
Just so beautiful. What stood out to me here too is I'm always relating innate to adaptability, and here it's innate to adapt and assemble. So she's adapting and assembling, and I'm picturing like storage, assembling. She's assembling these forces, and there's that direct connection.
In perfect orchestration, right? A little bit of this, a little bit of that. We'll hold that for later. Everything is in that divine perfection. Should we go to the next one, Barry? You want to read it?
Yeah, let's do it. Article 333, cause and effect, principle number 17. Every effect has a cause, and every cause has effects. It is evident that one could not exist without the other. There could be no reason for the existence of a cause if it did not have effects. It is an axiom that there could not be an effect without a cause causing it. The study of chiropractic is largely a study of the relations between cause and effect and cause.
What'd you all get from that? There could be no reason for existence of a cause if it did not have an effect, right? What would be the reason for a bird flapping its wings, or two cells coming together to create, a molecule or a being, right? Two atoms coming in to make a molecule. It is an axiom, and that could not be an effect without a cause causing it. The study of chiropractic is largely a study of the relations between cause and effect and cause. What do you think he meant by that part?
All
Jake,
I hear is
on here.
All I hear is creator. All I hear is creation. That's
Okay.
that's really what I hear and see. And then if you break it down into what we can study and see and affects the scientific reason, this applies to that as well.
Yeah.
But to me, it's the creation of everything, the reason why we're here.
The structure and function, cause and effect, subluxation and dis-ease.
How about
Great.
if can I read what Strauss says about this chapter?
Go
About
ahead.
this principle? Strauss says, I'll read the whole thing. Part of it's I find it very interesting.
As long as it's not really long.
No. It's
Go ahead.
the principle of cause and effect is an important one, as Stephenson states. It is also one that has caused quite a bit of confusion and difficulty within the chiropractic profession. While every effect has a cause and every cause creates effects, the chiropractic profession has been guilty of concluding causes and effects that may not be accurate. They have used inductive methods to conclude vertebral subluxations as the cause for multitude of diseases and conditions. By looking at an effect and not realizing there may be numerous causes, chiropractic has slipped into the therapeutic model that it is largely seen as it is largely seen today. Because of this confusion, and also because chiropractic has been accused of presenting itself as a cure-all, the objective straight chiropractor has looked at the cause and effect from a deductive rather than inductive standpoint. We have concluded that the vertebral subluxation causes the effect of the innate intelligence not being able to be expressed fully. If innate intelligence uses the nerve system, and if it is interfered with, then the body cannot work as it should. If there were another way for innate intelligence to get around the nerve system, then there would be no need for one. As a side note, this discredits the theory of evolution. Well, that goes on to something else. But I find that very interesting that he talks about inductive versus deductive, because we talk about that we are based on deductive reasoning here from universal down through everything else. And cause and effect, we have to be careful with that to say it's not the subluxation that causes the disease. It's the limitations of matter, and there's a difference.
Let me read the definition of inductive reasoning, just to give everybody this. I like what you're saying, Alan. Inductive reasoning is a method of drawing conclusions by going from specific to general. It is usually contrasted with deductive reasoning, where you go from general information to specific conclusion. Inductive reasoning is also called inductive logic and bottom-up reasoning. I don't know if that helps us all, but I thought I wanted to get that out since we're talking about it. So,
Yep.
yeah, Alan, go ahead.
What's interesting, I like that observation, Alan, because Strauss inserted vertebral subluxation here, like his vision of this cause and effect. And it points out one of the weaknesses that we have in a profession. You cannot claim those results. You can't, say this. I get that. I also get that on a broader scheme too, that whole cause and effect has a cause.
Well, I'd also like to point out from, Alan's reading as well from Strauss, who mentions the subluxation because, it's been drilled into our younger heads. But you realize most of the stuff we read about, they mention subluxation and very limited. It's not constantly subluxation. And, he doesn't mention in here, he talks about cause and effect. And I think about that often, really. Why did BJ or DD, we talked about the subluxation, but it's not the main topic of conversation through these books, if we realize. Anyway, that's my 11 cents. Why do you think that might be? We'll work on that. I have my thoughts. So should we go to the next one? Do it. Let's do it.
The signs of life, principle number 18. The signs of life are evidence of the intelligence of life. They are motions of the adaptive kind, which show the presence and government of a localized intelligence. They differ from the motions of universal forces in that they show selection and the judgment of local intelligence in every phase. They meet, use, or oppose every environmental circumstance, if it is within the range of their limitations. There are 5 principal signs of life. Their names and order of importance are assimilation, excretion, adaptability, growth, and reproduction. An organism may have these signs so latent that it is difficult to tell whether the organism is alive or not. Yet the slow organism has its share, its quota, the requisite amount of intelligence for its state of organization.
Now, that's what I have in my office. On the right at the front is the definition of what that innate what is innate, and that's what we're talking about. What are the signs of innate intelligence? And this was big with Sigafus. We used to talk about it all the time: assimilation, excretion, adaptation, growth, and reproduction of life. An organism may have these signs so latent that it is difficult to tell whether the organism is alive or dead. Yet the low organism has its share, its quota, the requisite amount of intelligence for the state of organization. Amazing. Anybody on that one?
Alan, what's Strauss say?
Strauss says, I'm going to read this whole thing. Give me a second to make sure I marked a good part here. Sorry. What Stephenson says, they differ from motions of universal forces in that they show selection, judgment, local intelligence in every phase. He's hitting on what makes innate intelligence what it is. Universal forces act on matter in the same way. Therefore, the matter will respond the same under every circumstance. Water will boil at 100%. 100%. It's 100% centigrade every time you heat the water to that temperature. But subject the body to higher temperature, and it will react differently depending upon the condition of the matter and its adaptive ability. The action, he talks about that, he just talks about the difference between temperatures. You feel hot, you feel cold at the same temperature. Some people feel hot and feel cold at the same temperature. He says the action of localized, that's the action of localized intelligence. The difference is important in demonstrating the principle of life. He says, that, so again, he goes back to universal affects everything the same way. It's unsolicitous. The hot is the same temperature. If you're talking to a stone or a bottle of water, it's going to boil at the same temperature. Bodies react differently. I may feel hot at 70 degrees. Somebody else may feel hot at 80 degrees. And you start to sweat at different people sweat at different times. And that's your personal adaptation to your environment, the innate intelligence within you and the matter that it's occupying, adapting to the environment that you personally are living in. And that's the difference. Universal doesn't care. It's making it 80 degrees out there.
The signs of life, though, the signs of life are important because that's the part that you and we work with as chiropractors, not the signs of matter, but the signs of life. That's why this one is actually so important.
Well, innate is in living things.
That's exactly right. We've gone through, and I think that's why now 333, and they make it Article 330. It's important for these guys, these numbers, and where we're making that transition from universal to material now, right? But universal to life and innate, and where we're really talking about what we are really doing. We're working with the living part of you. I'm working with your inner intelligence, not the material. The material just houses that system, right? We're working with your inner intelligence from innate to innate, so you're functioning at your optimum best. After that, we step away. We tap into that through the physical and the material portion.
Yeah, and in these 5 functions, we have effect on assimilation, excretion, adaptability, growth, and reproduction. So that'll increase those signs of life. We're working with this material, this piece of matter that has this evidence of signs of life. We just heard about cause and effect. We also read in here that it's only adaptable to its limitations. So we may be really high in one area, like assimilation, but really low in reproduction or whatever. Maybe that's not a good example.
I follow.
But anyway, these 5 signs of function here, assimilation, excretion, adaptability, growth, and reproduction, we have effect on every day through our practices, every day.
That's right. That's how we bring it home to what we're doing, putting it into practice. That's why it's important to know principle number 18, right? Who wants to read organized matter? Barry, you want to do this one again?
Sure. Principle number 19, organized matter. The material of the body of a living thing is organic matter. Organized matter is structures of molecules and atoms which have been assembled for the purpose of functioning adaptively. They are structures that have been built by their innates to house them, the innates, in parentheses. They are, therefore, under the solicitous care of those intelligences, the same as any house would be under the care of its owner. The house of an innate intelligence is built and kept in repair by its owner. The structure is precious to the intelligence that built it, but it is not precious as a structure to universal intelligence, except insofar as it is a part of the universal scheme to have structures built in order to tear them down.
It's a big statement at the end, really, right? What'd you guys get out of that? Any insights? The house of an innate intelligence is built and kept in repair by its owner, which is innate. It's not our educated that thinks we own this body. It's the innate intelligence is keeping it in repair by its owner. The structure is precious to the intelligence that built it, but it is not precious as a structure to universal. Except this is where we're getting the destructive forces and the constructive forces of innate, destructive forces of universal. We realize this is where he's setting the stage. And a structure of universal intelligence, except insofar as it is a part of universal scheme to have structures built in order to tear them down. Everything is fleeting, right? Everything is temporary. Universal will take over and recreate that energy into something else, use that matter, and nothing's lost, and everything is gained in my world, is the way I like to think about it. But that's the destructive and the constructive forces of universal. That's what I got from it. What about you guys?
It's very poignant for me this week because, as most of you, some of you know, my sister passed this week, last week.
Our condolences, for sure.
And so this is very interesting to me because if you think about what it says here, it's innate is a part of, but apart from universal. It cares about the body that it's in, and works to it and creates the adaptations as well as it can with the limitations of matter to keep it in alive, the life that we're talking about. Universal says it's just physical. I'm not worried about that. It's going to break down. My sister, we put her in the ground, and her spirit is already. I said to her every day the last few days, I said, let your spirit go back to the universal intelligence. You're ready to go. And that's really the way I feel about it. Her body is gone. Her spirit is eternal, as all of us are. And he's saying here, universal doesn't care about the physical body we're dwelling in, other than its material that it can use to make something else later.
Absolutely. And our condolences again, Alan. But that's a powerful outlook, and just that our energy it's reborn into something else. All the positives and negatives and everything else, from it makes the birds and the bees and the trees and all the other people too. I'm going to read this next one. Anybody else have anything else? I'm going to read this next one. Innate Intelligence, principle number 20, page 257. A living thing has an inborn intelligence within its body called innate intelligence. It is a local intelligence which has built a house for itself and kept that house in repair, and is the intelligence to which the condition of the structure is of supreme importance. No one will deny that it requires intelligence to build a body, and it cannot be denied that it takes intelligence to build even a single tissue cell. No scientist, however clever, has been able to do it and never will, for it is a task for the infinite, which is, he's making a distinction from universal intelligence to the infinite being God and separating that thing. And I think he's doing the right thing. Excuse me, I lost my page. No scientist, however clever. It must be remembered that infinity is in a tissue cell just as much as in stellar space. It cannot be done by man, no matter how efficient his laboratories are. Moreover, man cannot even repair one of these tissue cells if it is damaged. The cell and the bodies are built according to a plan. It takes an infinitely wise architect to make those plans. Though the scientists have studied anatomy and histology for centuries, their knowledge of the body leaves us much unexplored, as darkest Africa before it was explored. Sugar is organic matter, having the formula C12H22O11. It is today it is made by the innate intelligence of the plants. Let chemists take the same elements in the same proportion, combine them chemically, they will have a compound of CHO, but it will not be real sugar. Why? Because the infinite wisdom of an innate intelligence was necessary. Let in this step for our study look upon innate intelligence less romantically and more scientifically. Let not as a little God coldly aloof somewhere in our body, whom we personify with a capitalized name, and whom the more conceited of us thinks we must chastise occasionally, but as a mathematical law of nature. And I am absolutely guilty of that. I personify it. I talk more in the metaphysical than the physical because I enjoy that, right? It's where I'd rather spend my time. But he's saying you also have to look this scientifically, right? When we take biochemistry, and we all remember the Krebs cycle in making ATP, right? Adenyl triphosphate. How in the world, the absolute amazingness of making energy, right, in the body, in every single cell, over and over again, gajillions of times, right? All from that life that's in it within already. What do you guys think?
I think there's a lot of key points here. I really like his use of the infinite. That you don't see that too often in his writings and in our writings. Right. The thing about the sugar too and Mother Nature and the tissue cells is key to when I was growing up in biology pre-med, then in the chiropractic, of where this is natural law. If you follow natural law, and hence the ADIO philosophy, right? If you break natural law, you're going to have those cause and effects if you follow it. And man and woman scientists today, we cannot recreate these things. It doesn't happen. It can't happen. And I also noticed the key word of the master architect, and that's part of Stephenson's background of being a Mason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's why I picked out the 333. And there's probably much more coded than I can even fathom in here, but a lot of interesting insights. Thank you for that. And thank you for your insights too, Alan, to everybody's.
I think it's interesting. It must be remembered that infinity is in tissue cell just as much as in interstellar space, or he says in stellar space. But we have to be careful about mechanizing innate. That and not to make innate a deity. I don't want to think of universal as God necessarily, although that is an analogy that I think that analogy may be limiting in some ways. But innate is a part of that overriding power in the universe. And it is in every cell. And there's a difference between the mechanistic approach of saying that we're affecting innate. No, we're not. The adjustment doesn't affect innate. We affect the body, and innate takes whatever we put in there and says, this is what I can use in this body. The wisdom, the infinite wisdom that is there already, tries to use the force that we do to the best of our educated ability put in as chiropractors, hoping that innate can use some of it to make a correction and allow the body to express more of the help that's already there.
You hit on something so important, Alan, is that we don't do the adjusting. It's only the technique groups that say we're doing the adjusting. BJ and DD never said it, and they made a point. We don't do the adjusting. You're offering the proper influence. Innate's on the job and knows where your vertebra is meant to be. And it might be, just the right bit. If it's opening up a nerve or closing, who knows? It's not up to you. Like Pasquale used to say, what's going on with that person's none of your business. It's not. Innate's on the job. I'm just here to lend a helping hand the best that I can with my limited nature of being able to do it. Thanks for mentioning that, Alan. And I just had to expound on that a little.
You're exactly right. The body is already doing the best it can at that moment before the chiropractor does anything. Innate is functioning 100% within that body, within the limitations of matter that are present. And we go in and we, to the best of our ability, try to do something that may allow a change that's going to help that improve, that from our point of view from the outside in. But it's really that inside out that's doing the job.
Alan, this is fun because whenever I'm involved with I know that you're retired out of practice, so I'm still involved in some of the technicalities.
Still touch people.
No, of the adjusting groups, of that part. So the technicalities of some of the adjusting groups, and they're wanting to, because of this torque, because of this angle, the vector, you expect these effects, results, and it's like, no, you got to go back to our simplicity. I'm literally only offering them hope. Because then they get lost back into that technicalities of these cause effects of these technical things. And like you're saying, and what we're reading here, when you go back to these laws, these natural laws, these principles, this is how it flows. This is how it works. We can only offer hope.
It's so important you say that, because, we want to dabble with this and change that. If I do this, it changes your digestion. If I do that, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. Well, who knows? That's right. It's the server's educated that's doing that, which is, no matter what, still the dum-dum compared to innate intelligence, right? So very often I want to fix your pancreas and I can do it right there. But, maybe it's not the time for that. Maybe they need to heal their heart first. Maybe it might be a liver issue. There's a hierarchy bigger than what we know. And I use my mother as the example quite often. I was adjusting her when I moved, back to town here, and her sciatic pain got worse and worse and worse. I mean, literally dragging her leg, and I got into therapist mode. I'm trying to fix her leg, her sciatica. It's my mom, right? And then I had to step back, like, okay, let's get back to what we do. And what was happening, her heart disease actually got better. Her 99% blockages in her coronary arteries and her carotids went to 50%. The sciatic pain got worse and worse and worse as her kidney that was shriveled up, non-functioning, went to 8 centimeters in functioning. What was happening is that kidney was pushing on the sciatic nerve back there, making room, saying, get out of my way. God forbid she got out of pain and I stopped adjusting her. You think about that, right? I had no idea that was going on until we went to the doctor, did an ultrasound, and he was like, holy moly, that thing's 8 centimeters. It's been, in his notes, a shriveled up prune since she was pregnant with me. Let's put it in that sense. And it started functioning again. The sciatic pain is the little thing. You can live with dragging your foot. It stinks, man. It hurts. I've had it, right? But you can't live without your heart. The ticker was number 1 on the plate. She had 2 kidneys. One worked. It's better to have 2. That was the second thing on the plate. Tertiary, her sciatic pain started going away, right? So I don't know what innate class plan. It's bigger than smarter than me, right? But as chiropractors, we want to be the fixers. I got to fix you. And that's what's happening in the school. I'm going to say it right out loud right now. In the schools right now, is making everybody the fixers. That's what a technician is, right? You had that post the other day. And that's who cares about the technician? That's just somebody that you press B, C, and L if you have A, B, and J, right? That's nobody.
I remember just so emphasizing early on in my career here, so much emphasis on technique. And it
Yes.
became very frustrating too, because there were contradictions and unknowns. But don't you remember early on how much you struggled to know the exact way to adjust technically?
Well, and that's where you've got to learn those skills. You've got to get the motor response as you get more proficient through time, not when you first start in practice or when you're in clinic. It really takes that growth to say, I'm going to let all that go. That's what takes the hardest work. That's where you go into service and outside when you're done with practice and you go into service, right? I had the revelation. I remember doing it. I am no longer in practice anymore. I am in service. And everything changed for me emotionally in practice, actually, man. Everything changed of going and making that shift. But I knew it when it happened, because I'd worked that hard. But for all of us, and I think, there's a lot of cop-out tools out. I'm picking on techniques. I mean, really, like, there are schools that only teach flexion distraction. Like, that's not a technique of adjusting. There's a tool that might help. It might feel good. I've had it on me. It felt good. It's not a technique for adjusting vertebral subluxations, and you can't depend your whole life on that. I'm going to tell you a story. Art Kaufman told me. Love Art Kaufman. God bless him. May he rest in peace. And he was mentored by J. Clay Thompson himself. May he rest in peace as well. And he said, Clay told me this: you do art, and when you have that patient, not everything's working at the moment, you go strict technique. Okay? I remember that since I was in school. And you know what? It makes more sense every single day. Bob, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
Okay,
Did you have something to say? Go ahead.
sure. I think your story is very relevant, and it's good to be reminded of that about your mom and how you approached that after realizing what was going on with that. And I think that's really great. I probably remember so many times Skip George would always say, we heal in by priority.
Yeah.
And that's so important.
But nobody talks about that in schools. That's what's so important. We're therapeutic. It's the therapeutic model. And you're right on target. It's probably from Skip George that I got that and realized it, Absolutely. Thanks for reminding us, Bob.
Technique is we learn technique and have to practice the details of that. But it's as we read in DD, it takes practice over time to then find that there's other things. It's bigger than your technique. It's important to understand how to apply force in ways that are valuable, but you get beyond that educated over time by touching hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of bodies and seeing what happens when you actually touch them, other than what you just analyzed on an x-ray or found in your leg check.
And when not to. Go ahead, Bob.
And when not to. Yes.
My dad was working at BJ's clinic. He was kind of afterwards, emeritus or whatever you would say. But he would still show up here and there, and he would have something to say here and there. And the only story that my dad remembers of that was BJ saying, if a witch is sitting there and waxing the ass with a what?
A bat.
Yeah, no, with a broom.
A broom.
He goes, what's the difference? You know, and he was so clear, saying that so quickly about how we're not making the adjustments, like we've been talking about all night.
Yeah.
I mean,
You know,
if
the
periodically you
difference
see stuff in the paper that says you see an article or something periodically, you hear it on the news, somebody that amazingly fell down or they hit their head and some ailment disappeared.
Oh yeah.
Ultimately,
talked
they were
about that, too.
adjusted. It was an adjustment. The innate used that force of when they fell and whacked their head on the floor or hit their head on the table to adjust atlas or axis or something in the cervical spine. And all of a sudden something healed and was different. They got their hearing back. They got their vision back is usually one of the things that happens when it's a miracle. And that's when they'll talk about it in the news. Oh, but we understand what happened then. And when we adjust somebody, when we put the force in, it's the same thing. Either innate uses what she can of the force that's going in, whether it's by falling down and whacking your head, or whether it's a chiropractor trying to put a specific force. We find that we can use less and less force when we get closer and understand better to be able to give innate something that she can use that's less gross. But for her, what we give is still pretty gross, no matter how specific we think we are.
what
And
comes to mind.
And that's what we have to come up with. We have to be more humble about what we're doing. Unless I'm fixing you, then I'm allowing that power that's within you to do the work here. And I'm just trying to be as close as I can to giving her something she can use.
What comes to mind is the difference with a master musician. In the beginning, he learns the notes, he studies the technical aspects, but then there's a difference when he begins to play music. When he really masters it, then the artistry comes through.
That's when he's not thinking about it, right? He doesn't have to think of that's
He did it. He did in the beginning.
That's right. That's that's where we're making that shift. All that's really good input. Anybody have anything else? We have one more, but I think we should save this on this page for next week.
Yeah, this has been deep. We should leave it here. This has been deep. We should leave it here.
Yeah.
Well, I want to go back to one thing.
It would be good to start with this one. Go ahead.
We go back to reading about every cause has an effect. Every effect has a cause. It blows my mind to think it's uncountable. All of the causes and effects that have made this moment right now possible the way it is exactly had to be completely causes and effects beyond our ability to even imagine it.
Mind-boggling.
The six of us are sitting here talking about this. Yes.
And all the trials, tribulations, joys, and celebrations to get to this moment in time in our lives individually. It's astronomically
if that
amazing.
Dinosaur didn't, make a hole in that mud pile, we wouldn't be talking like this.
That's it. Speaking about talking like this, Saturday, May 18th. Okay, now this is a shameless plug, but we're going to do Synapse Philosophy live. Okay, I'm going to start doing them a little bit more live. We're live here, of course, but some Palmer students asked me to do a philosophy night. And again, I've been doing them for 18 years in my office, take a break for the past couple of years, but I'm back to doing them now, May 18th. And I thought, you know what, why don't we stream it live? It's the same code that we all use to get on here, okay? But it'd be nice to have some insights because we're going to do the 33 principles with them. Not through them all, but give us some insights. I talked to Simon Sensen the other day, And he's got an event. I think he's doing something for his master's thesis that weekend. Because one of the students asked about BJ, the spiritual writings of BJ, and he's going to guide me to some things in his writings for that Saturday. And we've all been hanging out talking about this stuff. So I'll have you on the big TV at the office, just like the Self Center. I'm going to talk to Brian about how he got everybody on the TV, and we'll have this meeting. Whoever wants to join in, I'll put it out to the whole world, and I think we'll have a lot of fun. May 18th, put that in your 6 p.m. Put it in your calendar, okay? I will
6
post
p.m.
it
Eastern?
8,000 times before then.
Hey, do you have that book?
6 p.m. Eastern?
I do not have that book. Correct. Eastern. Do you have the book?
I do.
I don't have the book.
SimonsonPublishing.com.
What's that?
SimonsonPublishing.com, I believe. Or Institute Cairo. He has them on there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, it's a song. You know,
it's a great book. You'll look at BJ Palmer in a different light.
Yeah, I have that book. I love that book.
I've been meaning to get it. I mean, I'm quite honestly, it's probably in my cart on the book thing. You know what I mean? But he's going to give us some of his insights and guide us a little bit of where to start, some good points to touch on, which is really exciting. And then, of course, I've got to have the book. You know what I mean? But I'm really kind of excited about that part, to have Simon Sensen is guiding us a little bit. And then, hopefully all of you can come on and offer your tidbits and just join in, whatever. Bring some friends, okay? We'll have pizza and you'll be very jealous because it's good from around the corner. From Luigi's. Anyway, anybody have any other tidbits? We're going to start on principle number 21 next Tuesday. Okay? I'm excited because it gets even juicier from here. And we've had a lot of good insights from everybody. Thank you, Alan, Steve, Carol, and Rob, and Barry, of course. And arrivederci. Have a great night, everybody.
See you guys. Thanks.